So after a couple of weeks away soaking up Lando's Miami win, F1 was back at it in Europe, with the travelling circus heading to Italy and to Imola for the Formula 1 MSC Cruises Gran Premio del Made in Italy,
one eternity later,
e dell'Emilia Romagna 2024. I think the only thing longer than that name is the amount of time Logan Sargent takes to complete a lap of the track. Coming into the event and the fight for second was closing up, with Perez, Leclerc, Norris and Sainz all separated by just 20 points, with 20 points being almost as many as Lewis Hamilton has for the entire season. But would he and Mercedes be able to add on to that tally? Well, let's find out as we get into my ultimate review of Formula 1 and the 2024 Formula 1 MSC Cruises Gran Premio del Made in Italy dell'Emilia Romagna 2024 Grand Prix. So what has been going on in the time off between Miami and Imola? Well, a lot of attention was on Williams and their driver lineup, with rumours of a special application to see if Kimi Antonelli could be given a super license exemption given he's only 17, with the idea being that he could replace Logan Sargent at some point this year, with the requirements from Williams being that he knows exactly what a kilometre is. And then on the other side of the garage, there was good news for fans of the team, as it was announced that Alex Albon had signed a multi-year extension to stay at Williams. I'm sure he's looking forward to 2 more years of Q1 exits, P12 finishes, and carrying the entire weight of the team on his back. Over at Ferrari, and they had been doing some testing, specifically looking at some potential wheel covers to try and help reduce the amount of spray in the wet. And all I can say is, these may be some of the ugliest things I've ever seen since I found out what a blobfish was. And finally, given we were at Imola, Sebastian Vettel had organised a tribute to Ayrton Senna and Roland Ratzenberger, who both sadly lost their lives here 30 years ago, with special t-shirts made for everyone to wear, except Max, who must have not given Sebastian his shirt size, and Valtteri, who clearly got the term tribute mixed up with triathlon. So into practice, and Williams wasted no time to thank Alex Albon for his contract extension by providing a car that died just 20 minutes into the weekend.
My disappointment is immeasurable.
At Ferrari, and Carlos Sainz was showing off his new upgrades, off-road upgrades as it turns out, as he cut the chicane and went over the grass in practice.
You wanna see me do it again?
As in FP2, well, the Spaniard did exactly the same thing. As it turns out though, that corner in particular was quite problematic, as Max Verstappen also went cutting across to save himself from ending up in the wall instead, because what Red Bull driver would push so hard that they end up in the wall in practice? Sergio would, as he launched his Red Bull over the curves and couldn't control its return to earth and landed nose first in the barrier. To be fair, at this point Max really wasn't filling Red Bull with confidence either, as he ended up with a trip through the gravel during the first practice session to go with his earlier excursion. Max just turning himself into Lance Stroll the second he doesn't have a car 20 seconds clear of the field. As it turned out though, at that particular corner things could be worse, as demonstrated by Lewis Hamilton losing his car on the exit and spinning his way onto the grass, accompanied by a trip to the gravel a little bit later on in practice as well. Lewis just playing Pokemon with the runoffs and trying to collect every different one. However, the biggest mistake of all would be courtesy of Fernando Alonso. Wait, what? As the Spaniard lost the rear of his Aston Martin and spun off into the gravel at the final turn and then the wall, giving his mechanics quite the repair job before qualifying. To be fair though, we could have easily had a lot more incidents, with both RB cars forcing some evasive action from Kevin Magnussen and Pierre Gasly transforming into a roadblock at the final turn, though realistically Oscar behind should probably know that the Alpine is more likely to be slowing down than speeding up. Into qualifying, and Alex Albon started off the session with some off-roading, but he did make it through into Q2, unlike his teammate. No surprises there. However, what was a surprise, Logan wasn't last, until his lap got deleted, relegating him to 20th and normality was restored. That was until Fernando Alonso got involved, as he spent his Q1 off in the gravel and not really setting a lap time, ending up P19. Eliminated alongside Sargent, Bottas, Joe and Magnussen, with the other Haas, by the way, up in P3. On to Q2 though, and after the first runs it was the usuals at the top. Perez, Sainz, Norris, Piastri, Verstappen, Leclerc P1, and Yuki Tsunoda P2. Chef Yuki just absolutely cooking. And come the end of the session, teammate Daniel Ricciardo was also getting into the top 10, and the person he knocked out in 11th, Sergio Perez. On to Q3 then, and it was all pretty close. Just a few tenths in it at the top after the first runs, and with both Ferraris unable to then improve, eyes were on Max and the McLarens, with both Papaya cars improving their final times, but Max improving by more to take that pole position. On to race day, and all 20 drivers got through the opening laps clean, especially Fernando Alonso, who after pretending to be Stroll in qualifying decided to start from the pit lane. In the other Aston, and Lance himself was attempting an overtake on Ocon. Didn't work out, but at least he tried without taking anyone out. And with everyone settling into the race, we waited for some action, which came courtesy of Williams and Alex Albon, with the team once again thanking Alex for the contract extension by forgetting how to attach a wheel, meaning he spent lap 10 limping round, eventually being lapped, and then handed a 10-second stop-go penalty.
Oh fuck, I can't believe you've done this.
Meanwhile, at Aston Martin, Alonso's car was doing its best to compete with the Williams by setting the brakes on fire as he headed down to the pit lane, but no real issues for the Spaniard, besides being in basically last place. Further up the grid, and in the battle of this weekend's underperforming drivers, Sergio Perez was adding another incident to go with his practice crash and quali elimination. As with nobody anywhere near him, he locked up and headed off into the gravel, losing a load of time in the process. A bit ahead of the Mexican, and Lewis Hamilton was also doing his best impersonation of Sergio Perez. As with nobody near him, he locked up and headed off into the gravel, losing a load of time in the process. After all, I guess they do say great minds think alike. Up at the front, and it was time for pit stops, with Lando Norris the first in and Piastri following suit, with Carlos Sainz under threat of the undercut from Piastri, and so Ferrari decided to do nothing. Because why keep track position at a race where it's hard to overtake when you can just not? However, over in the Mexican's camp, and things really weren't going well, as after staying out long, he'd now been passed by Norris, Leclerc, Piastri, Sainz, Russell and Hamilton, before finally pitting and coming up P11 behind Tsunoda, Hülkenberg and Daniel Ricciardo. And while the medium tyres meant he could get by those last three with relative ease, he was still 30 seconds off of the top 7. Speaking of which, the closest pair at the front was Leclerc in third, catching Norris for second, with Leclerc pushing hard, but maybe a little too hard at points. And after that off, things went in Lando's favour, as he started to catch Max towards the end of the race, from 5 seconds away to 2 in just a couple of laps. But even within a second on the final lap, it wasn't quite enough, as Max held on for another win. But anyway, that's all for now. Hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, make sure to give the video a thumbs up and get yourself subscribed to the channel. But until next time, take care.